Well, hello! Thank you for joining me. I was just thinning my arugula, and these little thinnings make a delicious and tasty snack. Microgreens. Extremely good for you, very nutritious, and very delicious. My name is Dr. Becky Thomas. I hope I don't have arugula in my teeth right now. I'm faculty in the Park Resource Management program at Slippery Rock University, and I also work at the McCoskey Center at SRU. Welcome to the next installment of our Earth Month video series. Today we are going to be visiting a very exciting and very enchanting place, my yard. The McCoskey Center is one of my favorite places to visit on campus, and I have learned so much about sustainable living from my time spent at the McCoskey Center. In this short how-to video, I will share with you how bringing the McCoskey Center to my backyard and my front yard helps me to live in harmony with the plants and animals around me while also taking better care of myself. So I want to focus on 3 things that you can do to make your yard more welcoming for wildlife. First, we're going to talk about reducing use of pesticides. Then we're going to talk about building healthy soil through composting. And we'll wrap up by talking about how you can make your yard the best rest stop in the neighborhood for migrating birds and insects. Many of the strategies that I am going to describe today are easy to implement and will save you time and money in the long term. So grab your sunglasses and your hat. Our first stop is the garden. Come on. So there are some things in my yard that wildlife can eat, and we'll talk about some of those things a little bit later. But there are other things in my garden that I do not want wildlife to eat, and that includes my food. So the kind of big take-home message here is that when you are trying to manage those pests, one thing that you don't want to do is use pesticides. And I want to find a way to protect my food while also protecting the food chain. Because remember, if you are pumping your little mini ecosystem full of pesticides, then that can also impact the other species that eat those pests and that rely on them for survival. So one of the strategies that you'll see behind me is a row cover. So this is a mechanical defense, and it also serves an additional purpose of extending the growing season. So I've actually been growing some cold season vegetables here under row cover since about the beginning of March. I have kale, spinach, Swiss chard, some arugula, several varieties of lettuce, radishes that I've been harvesting for a few weeks now. And because they are covered with these nice row covers, they are staying nice and toasty warm, and the row covers are also keeping the undesirable critters from getting onto them and helping themselves. Avoiding pesticides also means that you can take advantage of beneficial insect predators. And it's really fun to identify them. You can use apps like iNaturalist or Seek to learn more about what is living in your yard and what is using your garden ecosystem for survival. So this is a video that I took last summer, actually in the same location that you see behind me, of a praying mantis that was feasting on one of those hungry caterpillars. So I certainly want to be creating the type of environment where those beneficial insects can thrive and can help to do the hard work of pest control for me. So in order to grow healthy and abundant food, you need to make sure that you have a good foundation to support the growth of that food. And that's where healthy soil comes in. So let's head inside to the kitchen to talk more about how to reduce your carbon footprint through composting with worms. I'm getting ready to prepare some dinner here at home, and I need to slice up these Brussels sprouts. The ends are not going to be included in the recipe that I'm making for obvious reasons, but they will make delicious food for my composting worms. So if I were going to put these items directly into my compost pile, I would go ahead and place them in this bin. After it gets full, I would then take it outside and dump it out. But since I'm going going to feed them to the worms today, I'm going to actually chop them up a little bit finer. Worms prefer to have their food finely chopped so that they can more easily digest it, and that means that you are more quickly on your way to fresh and healthy compost. So I'm here in my spare bedroom getting ready to feed my worms, and in the worm bin you'll notice that there is a layer of wet newspaper that is covering the worms. The worms are actually under this newspaper, so if you look closely you can see them wiggling around in there. And all of this rich black material, these are actually worm castings. So basically worm poop if you think about it, but also known as a glorious fertilizer for my garden that's going to help me grow beautiful and abundant vegetables this summer. So I'm going to go ahead and take my Brussels sprout cast-offs here, and I will sprinkle them into the worm bin. And that will provide a delicious meal for the worms so that they can continue to create compost and fertilizer, and I can continue to eat delicious food from my garden. How many of you have heard the saying that variety is the spice of life? And how many of you have ever been on a long road trip? If you've ever spent time driving across states like Nevada or Kansas or maybe even Pennsylvania up on Interstate 80 through the Pennsylvania wilds, you know what it feels like to be craving that wonderful rest stop with lots and lots of different options, right? If you've been subsisting on stale popcorn from tiny gas stations for the last 500 miles, you can't wait to find that rest stop sign with lots of different restaurants and lots of different options from which to choose. So by making sure that you have a lot of variety in your landscape, your yard can be the best rest stop on the highway. And you'll get to see lots of really neat animals that might just be passing through. So especially migratory species like birds and even some insects such as monarch butterflies. And there are two ways that I have done this at my house. First, I've replaced a lot of my lawn with flowers. So I have lots of different flowers that are popping up throughout the season, and there's always going to be something different in bloom. And I've also tried to plant lots of flowering trees and shrubs. Now the one behind me was here when I moved in, but I have a bunch of other young trees that are starting to grow and will eventually provide habitat for wildlife. So the tree behind me is a flowering crabapple tree, and those flowers provide nectar for migratory birds, and the insects that hang out on that tree and pollinate those flowers are also going to be very tasty snacks for migratory spring songbirds such as orioles and warblers. Now some animals are picky eaters, right? You've all been on a road trip with that very, very picky eater who, even when you find the best rest stop with the most options, they still can't find something to satisfy their cravings. That would be like the monarch butterfly. The monarch is only interested in one plant, and that is milkweed. So monarch butterflies will lay their eggs on the milkweed plant, and that is the only thing that the caterpillars can eat in order to ensure their survival. So when we think about diversity on the landscape, it's really important for us to focus on a diverse landscape so that it can be more resilient to changes and also better able to provide for the health of the wildlife, but also for the health of you. Thank you all for watching this video on wildlife-friendly gardening. We've talked about some strategies to avoid having your food supply eaten by hungry caterpillars and how to keep those caterpillars around so that they can feed others. We've talked about using food waste to build healthy soil through composting with worms. And we've talked about how to ensure that you have an abundance and diversity of different food sources in your yard for wildlife, since variety is the spice of life. So give this video a like if you learned something new, and drop us a comment to let us know how you have brought a little piece of the McCoskey Center to your backyard and your front yard to live in harmony with the plants and animals around you while also taking better care of yourself. Please also check out our social media pages for updates on programming. I hope you all stay safe and healthy and have a happy Earth Month.